واحد 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 واحد
The roads will be narrow, so I think this is the point where the team directors have said, all right, time to get a position at the front and hold that position at the front. And by to hold it, sometimes you can all just sort of spread across the road and effectively shut it off. But you can probably more easily hold it by just riding hard and forcing everybody to suffer in your wheel.
Novak has got responsibility at the front of the peloton. We saw his numbers there, pulling sort of approaching 400 watts here on this drag. Everybody is being asked a question or two. Some are able to answer it, so others will be starting to feel the pinch a little bit down towards the back of the peloton. A lot of riders not enjoying this. Interesting to see Filippo Ganna loitering near the back after his efforts yesterday. hugely impressive job done by the big Italian to make it into that lead group up over the top of the final climb of the day. You sort of think if he was in the leader's jersey, Filippo Ganna might be able to handle these climbs, and I wonder, was he just coming back from the car and finds himself near the back, or is he just not really quite as motivated or as invested today? Has got his stage victory already, of course, courtesy of that stage 1 time trot. And those derailleurs will be working hard today, up and down the block, in and out of the saddle. Georg Zimmermann, the German champion, on the front, having moved to the Lotto Intermarché squads a couple of years ago now.
Declan, this is a much better working group than what we saw yesterday. There were a dozen riders off the front yesterday, but quite a few passengers, nobody really going for it. Everyone was sort of doing turns, but it was lacking conviction. This group of 8, they're working much better together. Yesterday we saw that the 12, once the chase sort of took form behind, they started losing time really quickly. Where these 8, we've seen Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe riding for ages, and it stayed at 4.5 minutes and barely changed. It's only now it's come down a bit with the injection of pace behind UAE and Visma Lease like really pushing on particularly on that last climb. But still 3:45 with just over 50k to go. These 8, I think they're much bigger believers in their chances of pulling it off, and they're cooperating really well.
Comes down to 3 3/4 minutes. Race is on. And the next climb is beckoning. So race parts past places of pilgrimage. It's a place of pilgrimage for racing cyclists and indeed leisure cyclists alike in this part of the world. Not a huge population centre, so it's absolutely fabulous, fabulous cycling country, I think. Van Vitellian style, they tell us. That's what that looks like. Particularly engaging, isn't it?
Well, this is the other thing that really marks this region of Marquez. These sort of roads quite a lot as well. All right, nice new little section through here with some repairs, but you saw, you could barely even call it a patchwork. The rest, I mean, look at all the cracks in the road, the gaps. It's a tricky place to race. You'd be pretty lucky that you get some sections on descents where you get some new road surface. It is a bit more reliable, but it seems to be in a constant state of repair or disrepair, as it were. On some sections, look at this, how rough it is. Just the pothole filling itself it's almost like the repairs have been done from a moving vehicle. Haven't even stopped to put a pile on there and sort of pat it down and roll it. So they've gone past and sort of thrown a shovel load out and gone, yeah, it's close enough, almost got it. Yep, move on.
That'll do it. It's old school, isn't it? It's a bit more old style racing, isn't it? You've got a patchwork quilt of different road textures and surfaces to deal with behind there. You can tell there's a different level of pace and motivation about that group. Connor Swift on the front for the Ineos Grenadiers squad has set himself the task of ensuring that they can keep Magnus Sheffield in position. Magnus Sheffield, by the way, wearing the white jersey. He's sitting 7th overall. He's wearing that white jersey on behalf of Giulio Pellizzari. Second in that competition, of course, is Isaac Del Toro, but he's the Mexican national road race champion. So he gets to keep that jersey in his regular speed suits. So Magnus Sheffield, a bit easier to pick out as in that white jersey. Onto the Monte della Matera, a little way to go before they reach the top of this one. How much of their advantage will they still have? Edward Plankert worked hard to make it in. He's been there a while now, and the legs will already, I think, still with such a distance to the finish line, be a little bit tender for those riders.
Yeah, as I was saying before, the group of 8 off the front, they did really well holding the peloton for such a long time and staying us 4.5 minutes off the front. But when those fresh riders come through to the front and apply a bit of pressure, the gap starts to drop really quickly.
Through beyond Cardiceto today on stage 5 of Tirreno Adriatico. We're making our way to Barocchio today, 184 kilometers of challenging roads. Slightly shorter stage today, but there's a lot more climbing. 4,274 meters of elevation across a day where you're barely on a flat road for more than a few hundred meters. It's up or it's down. Sawtooth profile. And the people of Cardiceto, just how challenging these roads can be. And this is the latest climb. We're on the second classified climb of the week, of the day indeed, over 6.5 kilometers in length. Monte della Matera. How many of these riders? Well, Joan Bou is probably the most motivated to last to the top of the climb. He's the rider at the back here, the Caja Rural Spaniard, who scored the top points at the first climb of the day and is the biggest threat to that green mountain jersey worn by Diego Sevilla. Sevilla himself struggling in the peloton behind after 3 tough days in the breakaway. Joan Bou himself has been in the break earlier on in this race, but he's struggling in here, I think. I don't think he's much enjoying it. Let's see whether he recovers. Maybe I'm being a little bit previous. Just gets out of the saddle, responds and moves himself back into the group, but is he starting to feel the pinch a little bit?
Yeah, it was looking like it. Looking like it was starting to be a struggle, as you said. He'd quite like to be first over the top and get the points. I think at the moment, the way he was looking, he'd be quite happy to still just be a part of that group when they went over the top, no matter where he was placed.
And the gap has stabilized a little bit. It was at 4 minutes and 24 seconds. Then sudden arrival of the Visma Lease bikes, the UAEs and half a dozen other teams at the front of the peloton meant that the Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe squad could drop into the pocket a little bit. They have done a solid job of defending the interests of the blue jersey, Giulio Pellizzari. They'll watch with fascination to see what the UAE team Emirates XRG squad have got planned now, and that gap of 4:24. It was up around 5 minutes, then sort of held steady at around about the 4.5 minute mark for quite an extended period. And see, there's a bit of an issue for Del Grosso here.
Just on the radio to the team, letting them know that he needs a different wheel. I was just looking at the front of the peloton a moment ago. UAE have sent Dorman Novak to the front of the bunch, and a man who was paid tribute to by Tadej Pogacar the other day after his win in Strade Bianchi, and he listed each of his teammates and thanked them personally, and was talking about what they did in the race. And he said, a special shout out to Dorman Novak, because he's a guy who does a lot of his work before the cameras start rolling, before the live coverage starts. And we come on, let's say, with half race, 100k to go. You might get a glimpse of a guy like that, and then pretty quickly someone else take a problem here.
Yeah, punctures coming thick and fast for some sort of mechanical issue for Folldagger.
Yeah, it was very quick to stop the Folldagger. But yeah, back to my point, Novak, often their work is done before they get a lot of the glory. They get spoken about a whole lot, and Tadej Pogacar really made a point of talking about the type of work he does and how unselfish it is, and what an absolute beast he is. You have him in a stage race, and you're following the live updates, you just see his name there constantly every few minutes. Reminder, Novak's still driving the peloton. He's an integral part of the UAE team, as Filippo Ganna
he's such a superstar to these fans. I know he's going out the back, probably doesn't want the attention, but by the same token, they understand just how it is a horses for courses scenario, and he's sliding backwards. Still long way to go, isn't it? 50k. So I wonder how he'll hope to find a group that he can ride with through to the finish line, get a secure finish to support the Ineos Grenadiers squad over the final couple of days of racing action. He'll certainly have a big role to play on the final day on behalf of Sam Welsford, and indeed Tainham Aronsman and Magnus Sheffield in particular would appreciate his help in tomorrow's stage. You never know, maybe it's just day off, go again tomorrow after his efforts in yesterday's stage. Novak, our Slovenian national road race champion. And of course, he's the man now doing the work following. It's great.
We won't bother translating that one, shall we? We won't bother translating that one.
You don't need to.
He was encouraging in his own way. If you know, you know. Gap down to 3.5 minutes. It's working out quite well for Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, with UAE taking the responsibility. I mean, you just see they're looking to just set things up, try and win the stage, take the jersey back. But at the same time, it could be that they just end up setting up Giulio Pellizzari to increase his lead. It's quite an interesting finish too. There's that final climb. I mean, they'll get a couple of looks at it. It's 4.2k long at 6.2%. They go over the top, and then there's 1.7k.
A few crucifixions out there on this climb today, I think.
Well,
Joanne Boo, the latest.
Is the next to be crucified by the climb. It's 1.7k. It goes downhill before then kicking up to the line. But I think the climb is hard enough where someone could
Edward Plankett's kind of spoiled the fun a little bit for the Spaniard, I think, because I'm not sure he's going to make it. 300 metres to go. Oh, this is going to be... Because it's his finish line, in effect, really. Bamboo, I think, is struggling for energy, and this is a huge, huge investment. He's getting ever closer, and it's going to be a full-on sprint, I think, from the Spanish rider through to the top of the climb from here. The Monte della Matera has almost been breached by the break group, the opposite Premier Tech squad. Riding tempo on the front, everyone else looking pretty relaxed about it, and somewhat crushingly, top of the climb is reached, and frustratingly for Joan Bou, he wasn't there. He will work, I think, just to make his way back in, but it's going to get a little shake of the head here coming, I think.
I think he's had it.
Yeah. They might shout at him in the car to, well, get back on, you'd never know. But the next climb, I think, could be a one climb too far and too much for Joan Bou. Shame for him. Great effort. Diego Sevilla, wherever he is on the road. I'm not sure he's still in this peloton because we also saw struggling. And I suspect he's back the road. Trying to save energy as best he can while still making it inside the time cut today. Easier said than done. Uno X on the left-hand side of the road. US Grenadiers, NSN, the UAE Team Emirates squads command the front of the peloton. The peloton behind have reached this steadier gradient in the final couple of kilometres at the top of the Matera climb.
This to me now looks like Edward Plancart really just laying it on the line for his teammate Emil Vistringer, the man who's in second wheel, to give him a chance of going for a stage victory. Vistringer, the better climber of the two. There were some mixed messages earlier in the stage about exactly where he was and how much he might have been suffering, but the way Edward Plancart is riding would suggest that they've chosen for Emil Vistringer, who is much more a climber type. So that makes total sense that they're doing what they're doing. Doesn't look like Joan Bou will get back to them either.
No, I think Joan Bou is probably not going to... He's going to adopt a relatively low-risk strategy on this descent. It's tricky, testing technical descent. Plenty of winds and twists as we make our way through to get a first sight of the final moments of this stage. It's a plunge down into the final 300 metres. Sweeps around to the left-hand side. The gradient starts to grip. The final 300 metres at around about 7%.
Alan is just missing his apex a little bit there, just getting a little bit wide. Stuart Buck's also just off.
Finally, it opens up. You get a look at the finish line for the first time. Stuart Bucks will cruise back on. And Joampu might actually make it in after all that.
Oh. What do you know?
Complicated final kilometre, isn't it? It's going to be fascinating if there's a group still, contending this one to see how it's played.
Joampu looked like he was really close. Like, it looks like he might get back on. And they sort of come over the top around that bend, and the neutral spares went past him, and he actually then was sort of, it looked close, and he was more like sort of 12, 15 seconds behind and still struggling to try and close it.
Come out of the front of the peloton. Yeah, this is
just send like little wet patches off camber corners. This is going to be a good finale.
Stuart Bucks is in trouble as well. Is he going back looking for a car? Oh, he's got a puncture. That's what that was all about. And the Pinarello Q36.5 rider, frustrating after such an effort to make it into the break today. They've given quick service and going to throw a bike at him. He's going to take his time to get his head unit and...
well, that's.
I don't think you got too much time for that kind of stuff.
No, yeah. We just talked about data collection, and it is important if they want to get it. But if it comes down to sort of an emergency bike, you change the bike instead of the wheel because of the urgency of trying to get back on, then you're fudging around with a head unit and you can't get it off. Leave it. Just drop it. Concentrate on what's really important and trying to be a part of the breakaway.
He wasn't even off the bike. I mean, he was still trying to take the head unit off while he was sitting on his bike. I mean, get off the bike then, see if you've got time to... Yeah.
And a thinker would say to the mechanic, haven't got the head unit, come and hand it to me. You get it off and then hand it to me. Then you've got something you grab from the car, take a little sticky head unit, if you know what I mean. Then you also don't bother taking... bottles. You go with an empty bike and you wait for the team car to come, give you one bottle, put it in the cage, second bottle, put it in the cage, get your head unit and start making a little bit of ground, and hopefully then you can work your way back on.
Oh, right.
Said it was tricky.
Yeah. Rebel Bora Hansgrohe squad implicated among the main peloton as we see groups coming through heading for the finish line.
Couldn't pick up the lead. Who that was exactly.
And we see Mathieu van der Poel just at the back. Present and correct. Close to the front of the main peloton, led by the NSN squad. Uno X are clearly up today. The UAE Team Emirates XRG squad, multi-representation close to the front. They've knitted that little gap in the peloton together. Still a large group involved in the hunt for honours as the gap comes down inside 3 minutes to our now, 5 riders up front?
That crash happened quite near the front of the peloton. As you saw that split. It was one of the Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe riders. Now, I spotted Pellizzari, I spotted Primož Roglič. I thought it was Jai Hindley who was at the back of that first group as well. Not 100% sure, but it looked like him. We'll wait till we get confirmation of who that was that fell.
Brandon Rivera at the back of the main peloton, and one long snaking line down the descent that follows the run through the finish line. We're on the first of 2 21.6 kilometre finishing circuit loops. Let's get a look and see if we can see this rider going down from the Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe squad. See exactly what happens through the trees. Well, that was on the exit. Maybe a little bit of a road surface. I think it was Aliotti. Yeah. Giovanni Aliotti from the Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe squad, back on his bike. Bit of a shock to the system. Luckily, it appears that there's no lingering after effects, so that certainly is his face and general demeanour don't betray any serious issue, but just does he have the strength, the will, the ability? A lot of scuff marks there on that left shoulder, and the arm is a little bit damaged as well. Eminence sweeps past. He'll to play with, but I suspect it's going to be a struggle for him to make it back to the main peloton. Meanwhile, who's strong in the breakaway group today? Dahlgren at the back here, monitoring this big investment here from the Alpecin Premier Tech squad, with Planker just getting a little bit of a shout there, I think, from his teammate for Stringer. Maybe just a little bit of a, maybe not go quite as hard as you're going. Breakaway group. A study in synchronicity, combining well. I mean, how difficult is it on roads like this to actually put a group together working well?
Well, the smaller the group, the easier it is to work together, because it's just so twisting and turning and up and down. The bigger the group, the easier it is for riders to sort of stash themselves away at the back, miss turns. It's hard to get that reel through and off. So a group of between 6 and 8 is pretty manageable on roads like this, and it's harder for someone to sort of hide themselves away and be a bit incognito. But again, on when it's technical and hilly, it's you're not. It's not a team time trial. It's not a team time trial style effort. It's really hard to work very efficiently together. In the end, you just, which riders are evenly matched, who's the strongest, and those sort of stick together and just keep pushing the pace, work together on the flatter, more open sections when they come. But for the rest, it's just riders who can match each other uphill and just keep pushing on and cooperate the best.
Less than 40 kilometres of really tough, arduous Marche walls left at the conclusion of the 5th stage of Tirreno Adriatico. We're on our way to Monbaroccio. We've had one look at the finish line already. Another 2 tours through the stripe before we decide who's going to win this all-important 5th stage. And will it be from the breakaway, or will it be a rider from the peloton? Led in fine style. X squads and D squads. And indeed, the UAE Team Emirates XRG team have put their men onto the front. Kevin Vermarke doing a really solid job of late. Magnus Sheffield for the Ineos Grenadiers squad, an American rider. Other Americans potentially prominent today. Well, too far from the front at the moment. Matteo Jorgensen on the right-hand side of the 2 Visma Lease bike riders, looking cool, calm and collected. And indeed, Jorgensen, I think, his move across to Tirreno Adriatico hasn't quite paid dividends in terms of an overall bid for success, but don't rule it out. 4th overall, 34 seconds back. He looked really good yesterday, and he's definitely not out of the hunt for honours. And the pressure is on. The UAE Team Emirates XRG squad are really putting the squeeze on here. Stefan Kruijswijk, the oldest man in the bike race, starting to go south. He's not the only one. Anders Holland dropping out of contention. He'll hope his brother Tobias is feeling frisky and feeling good after his wonderful third.
This is really opening the throttle now by UAE. I mean, really stringing out, almost going completely single file. Just a few managing to sort of stay next to each other, make it look something resembling a bunch. But for the rest, a lot of riders going out the back, and these really steep sections. This is 16%. This kicker, and plenty of riders now going overboard.
Asparan was on the attack in yesterday's stage. He's dropping out of the bunch right now, so he's not much. Enjoy. And it's only the strongest are currently able to survive this one. Spinning out significantly is the XRG squad. What a show of strength from them. At the moment, Giulio Palazzari is best of the rest behind them. Well, it's a big effort from it's Kuznetsov, who we heard from earlier on, who's on the front at the moment. Russ Schartner. Isaac Del Toro next up. And then you've got Pellizzati, Jorgensen in command of his effort at the moment. Great effort from Ben Healy as well yesterday to infiltrate that lead group. He's another rider on the rise through general classification, moving up from 10th to 4th yesterday. Sits 39 seconds back. Bit of a gap between himself and the leading contenders. I mean, realistically, how many riders are actually in contention for overall victory here, Robbie? We've got, Pellizzari and Isaac Del Toro separated by the scant margin of 2 seconds. Primož Roglic, 21 seconds back. And then 34 seconds to Jorgensen, 39 to Healy in actual fact. Then Dram, Sheffield, Ciccone and the rest. The first 10 are covered by... Well, the first 13 indeed covered by 54 seconds. But realistically, how many of those riders can really believe they can win?
I think the top four, Pellizzati, Del Toro, Roglic and Jorgensen, I think have shown so far in this race that they're the ones capable of doing the damage. Roglic has sort of not made any big efforts and really showed himself yet, but he's still sitting third overall off the back of a strong time trial. Jorgensen, what he showed us yesterday on the steep climb in the finale, leading Wout van Aert and just smashing the peloton to smithereens. I think those four. Ben Healy's been good, but I think more a case of hanging in there, and to be able to go away and take 39 seconds in this race is a really big ask, Things are generally a lot tighter, but I genuinely believe that the top two at the moment are the best two in the race, form-wise, in Pellizzati and Del Toro. And today, I'm leaning towards Del Toro, and certainly his team are big believers, and I'm sure he's a big believer in himself, or he wouldn't agree with the tactic that's being applied. He looks confident, and wouldn't surprise me if he tries to get a jump and go away over the top of the final climb if he can shake Pellizzati. If not, a good battle between the two all the way to the line.
Well, the pair are just riding into this chase group, which is, I suspect, the third group on the road. So LaPera is certainly a very strong rider, isn't he, for the Decathlon CMA CGM team. Marked absent here amongst this. Is there any Decathlon riders still present in this group of favourites? I mean, if you're not in here right now, it's possible to recover, but the signal is certainly not good.
Now, I'm looking back, I still see Champoussin, Sonaro, Quintana, Michael Storer was there as well. But I'm just looking at how that peloton just split. I mean, UAE really turned it on. But the little climb which they did it on is barely perceptible on the profile of the stage. It just says so much about racing in this region, how many hills they are. They've drawn probably 12 or 15 of them on the profile, but there's about 150 climbs throughout the stage, and it's for that reason. I mean, look at the scramble here, trying to get back on. This is such a rotten hard stage.
Yeah, Van Dram, after his heroics yesterday, finds himself trying to chase. Valentin Madouas also further back than he would like, worryingly so.
Tiberi.
What about Tiberi? Yeah, I mean, I mentioned earlier that he was dropped back a little bit in a chase group yesterday. Finds himself chasing again today. Signal's not so good. Manu finished with a great stage victory in second overall in the UAE Tour recently, but for the young Italian rider, it's not such a great return to home roads in Tirreno. Certainly by the expectations that have perhaps been sort of ramped up by his performance in UAE Tour, and indeed in races in Italy last year.
Yeah, but I think also he's got his sights really set on some bigger objectives than Tirreno Adriatico, to be completely honest. Tour de France this year is the big goal, and he said at the start of this race he was a bit disappointed there weren't longer, more gradual, like proper mountaintop finishes in this race, and they're rather these really short, sharp, the Muri that we get here in the Marche region, and that's not his thing. He's not an explosive style of rider. He's much more suited to the long grind of Alpine and Dolomites passes.
Well, if you're getting back in, you've got to do it now. So riders sort of racing solo left, right. favourites. Huge reputation for the UAE team Emirates XRG squad in relative terms, isn't there? Big effort coming on here from the UAE XRG squad, the American rider. Setting the agenda.
No flag in this group. Just the one rider from this Matteo Johnson. And when you look through this group, it's more climbers, GC riders of note, and then looking completely comfortable. And these, Mathieu Van don't count him out.
While he's on hat-trick for the week, he's got two teammates up front, still in this breakaway group. Still Edward Blanker is selflessly setting the tempo on this breakaway. Their advantage as Yo-Yo is up and down roads. Mathieu Van der Poel, mentioned him, number one on his back, Manu Chicamino on his shoulders. Leading the points competition. 2 victories already this week, and he seems to be able to handle everything that's thrown at him. Had he gone for and really invested in a time trial on day one, who's to say he might not necessarily potentially be contesting for overall general classification this week.
Yeah, but there were choices to be made. He went out with a definite race plan in stages, so he didn't want to try and hunt GC when he really was cruising along. And all the other sort of classic style riders have been left behind. And you go through the rest of the group, climber. The one that comes close, just got back on, is Andrea Vendrame. Going to get Maros Regenier come back as well.
Yeah, Maros just finish it off after the great work done by his teammate Evan Jennings. Relief two for Matthias Baez. The two Baez brothers are in for the team multi-sport this week. It's Matthias that's managed to latch on for now at any rate. So first recovery achieved. The breakaway group up front. Meanwhile, within 3 kilometres of the summit of the next appointment. It is the Santuario Beato Sante. Delightfully named. And Kevin Marcus still setting the tempo.
Some of the UAE like Gibber, Marcus, swapping in, doing rides like this, really good to see.
That's an absolutely flying stage today. The 5th stage of Girino Adriatico coming down inside 30 kilometres remaining, despite the fact that we're down. We're approaching the very fastest anticipated schedule by the organisers today. Over 4,200 metres of elevation for Georg Zimmermann and friends. Well, this group is being asked to be questioned, but in the last 10 kilometres or so, they've managed to step the tide a little bit. The flow was certainly to the favour of the chase group behind. A somewhat thinned out and a select group of favourites assembling on the roads of the Marque in pursuit of the breakaway group. Now there's a sense of urgency from Michael Valgren and indeed from Jack Haig and Emil Bestringer and his teammates. Edward Blanco, who's past 20 kilometres or more at this point. Great effort being done so far. The best place rider in the breakaway group up front, Julian Alaphilippe, starting with a 120 down. He scored 3 bonus seconds at the intermediate sprint. He's still the jersey on the road. Now, though, they're frantically hoping to get up and over the next assault on the Santuario Beato Sante with something like a decent advantage. And now it's the Bahrain Victoria squad who joined the party. Raphael Bilbao loves the Marque roads. We've seen him perform a great distinction in the past on the roads of Italy, and both the Tirreno Adriatico and, of course, Giro d'Italia in the past. And Bilbao hits the front as they manage to get Antonio Tiberi back into position at the front of the race.
Now it's Santiago Buitrago, the man in second wheel. So Tiberi sitting a little bit further back, but trying to take the race by the scruff of the neck. They've got Tiberi up there on GC for Bahrain Victoria, sitting 10th overall at 49 seconds. And we're seeing if they can do a bit of damage to the lead of this breakaway. He's holding really strong at 2:26 with 28k to go. And it's panning out very, very well for the man who is virtual race leader, Julian Alaphilippe. But the way that Edward Plancard is riding so hard for his teammate Verstringer, and Julian Alaphilippe is able to take a bit of a back seat and not have to take on the responsibility of really driving the group, where he seems to be the one up there with the most to gain. Although, like I said earlier, I still believe that Julian Alaphilippe would rather win the stage and sort of even get eventually blown away on GC. I think it'd just be a really good boost for him and his team. And he really seems to be riding himself into some pretty decent form too. His 20th in Strade Bianche last week. He hit the front a couple of days ago on the gravel in this race. I think he just tried a bit too much, a bit too eager to try and make the big acceleration. Mathieu van der Poel then went over the top and smashed everyone. But Alaphilippe, he's cruising in this bunch, but Valgren also looking good.
The gap holding. And you're absolutely right. I'm not at all sure that Tiberi is in that group. I have a feeling he has come back. Yeah. But it's Pietrago that looks a lot stronger, and certainly Peo Bilbao on the front is in very good shape. So they've got multiple options. Bilbao potentially for a stage on or stage over 6 minutes down, but Santiago Pietrago 13th overall, 54 seconds down. Another good stage winning option from a rider who's clearly on some good solid form this week.
Yeah, Pietrago's that sort of climber who's got some good punch, and he seems to be in pretty decent shape as well. And maybe that's the man that they're trying for on the stage. And just saying to Tiberi, hang in there if you can, and maybe try and start some of these steep ones a bit closer to the front. Hasn't got the explosive power of maybe a guy like Isaac Del Toro, and needs those long. If you start at the front, you give yourself a little bit of sliding on at least. Looks like Plancard might be.
What an investment indeed. What an investment indeed from Edward Plancard on behalf of his teammates and fellow countryman Emil Verstringer. Verstringer on with his best wishes and best hopes. What an effort indeed that he made. And Verstringer starts to press on the pedals a little bit. He's clearly got a little bit here. Of course, he's the one who rode into this group. So the group of 6, 7 riders up front were joined by Verstringer. So it was a late counter-attack from him. So it was a good effort indeed, and a clear demonstration, I think, of good form today that he was able to ride across and into them. The Auto Intermarché team car just pulls to the side there. A bit early to be pulling them out. I think it's just going to line up behind the various motorcycles and other vehicles involved here, because they've still got Georg Zimmermann in here, for now at any rate. This is a challenging little effort being made by Julian Alaphilippe. Presses on the pedals. Valgren answers the question. How do the rest feel?
Well, Jack Hay just trying to close that gap back down, and Emil Verstringer, it looked like he felt the responsibility of having to do something after Edward Plancard had done all that riding, and then Alaphilippe come over the top, and you see Verstringer had to sort of double down on the effort just to stay in the wheels. Georg Zimmermann also just grinding his way back on to the back of the group, but that's just the first little prick that's been given by Julian Alaphilippe. It was answered by Michael Valgren, but Alaphilippe, he doesn't often just leave it at one attack or try and do it with just one. It's that sort of death by 1,000 cuts. He'll go. And then if maybe nobody's really paying attention because they think, well, he's just going to go again and that won't be much, that'll be the one. And he could just take off, and then he's left wondering, well, how did that happen? Where did he go?
So they're saying the start of the climb. This one goes down. There's about 4.8 kilometres from the start to the finish of the climb, depending on where you decide to pick it. There's a kilometre of pain and suffering, up to 15%. There's an average of over 9%. Then it kind of levels off for about a kilometre or more, quite a bit more than that actually. And then the final 1.1 kilometres of this climb is again back up to approaching 10%, and a little sort of maximum gradients of 15%. So there's a minor reprieve in this one. Not much of a reprieve for Stuart Bax from the break. He's back in. Meanwhile, Valgren has gone in the attack from the breakaway group. They're starting to race amongst themselves. And Alaphilippe's able to respond to this one. He's on a good day, that's for sure. Jack Haig, a little bit more laboured in his attempt to rejoin Valgren and Alaphilippe.
Valgren taking off, and it looked like initially Alaphilippe was seeing if the others would be able to close it when he realised they couldn't. He chose the moment to gap them, make the jump and go across to the Dane from the EF Education first team. So then there were two.
There's a minor little reprieve from the gradient, and then it'll start to rise again. There's a segment where the average is not particularly demanding or challenging. This is the moment that Michael Valgren decided to take his leave of his breakaway companions, and for the first time we're seeing a lack of cooperation between these riders, or an overt lack of cooperation. A few little digs being given by riders. This was a full-blooded effort to try and detach himself from the rest. And Julian Alaphilippe first to respond.
It was interesting watching Valgren go. Saw it right from the get-go, and just sort of watched him, just observed for a bit, and thought, okay, that's a good gap. I can jump across it and get rid of the rest.
Valgren and Alaphilippe, Dylan riders in that breakaway group, and rejoined the two up front, and I think Zimmerman wonders how much it's got for this, but the gradient is a little bit easier than it was. I think the sheer precipitous nature of the gradient was what was pushing him back out. Meanwhile, total control being maintained in the group behind. The gap coming down. It's another 10-12 seconds left off the advantage of the leaders in the last couple of kilometres.
Well, UAE still pressing hard with a number of riders on the front, and they've still got to take another 40-odd seconds, 45 seconds off the break to make sure that Julian Alaphilippe is no longer the virtual leader on the road. If they are unable to do that, he will not be virtual anymore. He'll just be the leader of Tirreno Adriatico and be pulling on the Maglia Azul this afternoon. But they've still got plenty of men on board for UAE to go harder yet. Kevin's remarked, and also got young Kristen, who we saw done some already vicious turns over the last week. Strada Bianchi to set up Tadej Pogacar, who's been really strong in this race as well. So they've still got enough firepower to set this right. But now that Valgren and Alaphilippe have found each other, this will be no more sort of foxing, hiding away, saving energy. This is the time to really expend what you've got left and make sure you're going to be, well, at least up against each other to win the stage and not get caught by the peloton.
Certainly the case for these riders. They can't afford to hang about just yet, but the problem is that as they go through this sector, this is the ramp that will take them up to the top of this climb proper. It's another kilometre and a bit at around about 10%, with little sort of sectors of 15%. Julian Alaphilippe works his way to the front. He's sharing the workload with Michael Valgren. Maybe wants to command this demanding sector of the hill, and that nodding dog busy that he has always looks terrific on a bike, doesn't he? But it is an all-action style. Valgren is being asked a question here about which of the two is the stronger. Little flick of the elbow from Julian Alaphilippe. Not sure if he was asking him to come through, or he just does that every 10 or 15 seconds.
I think he just has some involuntary flicks now and again of knees and elbows and head, but with sort of contrasting styles. Valgren metronomic, really smooth, often seated for most of the effort, unless he goes out of the saddle to make an attack. And Julian Alaphilippe, he's anything but smooth. He is everything else, and it seems to use every single muscle in his body to propel the bike forwards. But it is so efficient and won in so many races. And we've got two absolute winners off the front, so it'll be a great battle between those two, but also experienced enough to know they can't just sort of look at each other, start foxing it all. They've got to ride like a real tandem, like their teammates for now, until they're sure of battling out the victory between them, because there's still plenty to happen back here. Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe waiting in the wings, also behind UAE. Look over the shoulder from Alaphilippe, likes the gap that he sees.
Yeah, Zimmerman and friends, Haig and Verstrengen still chasing the gap, somewhat foreshortened actually by that camera motorcycle behind. Edward Plankert has been retained by the favourites, and he will have got, I think, a considerable boost to see his teammate Matthew van der Poel safely in the group of favourites at the moment. When he left Emil de Stringer, he was with these two riders as well. So he's feeling content about the great work that he did today. He's in Premier Tech with an opportunity of glory today. And yes, Grenadiers too have Jack Haig in pursuit. Possibly get back on terms. You wouldn't bet on their chances just yet. You wouldn't bet on them at all, really, because that little sector, that was the little 15% section, I think, and that really pulled a lot of momentum out of their chase.
Yeah, signalled at 12 seconds. It looks to be a little bit more than that, to be honest. I think it's more around sort of 15, 16 seconds. And Valga and Alaphilippe, this is no hesitation. This is just gradually pulling that gap further open as we go ever further up this climb. There it is, out 15, 16 seconds. So I thought it was widening. And as you say, sometimes you can fall shortly. You see the shot down the road. You think, oh, they're quite close. But with the gradients, and that's what you don't quite get on television, how steep these climbs are. It can be quite difficult to tell. And it does take them a long time to sort of ride across that 80 or 90 metres.
Well, the first of two passages of the Santuario Beato Sante is complete. It's Michael Valgren and Julian Alaphilippe. To my untutored gaze, it would appear as if Michael Valgren looks marginally the stronger of the two, but Julian Alaphilippe has this way about him of looking fatigued while still being full of fight. Meanwhile, behind, they're still full of fight as well. Jack Haig, Georg Zimmermann and Emil de Stringer across the top of the climb. They get relief from the gradient, but they'll know that they can't afford to waste a single moment. They've got to stay on the pedals and stay pushing to a level of intensity that will ensure that they fend off that group, because they've got to go all the way back around to the climb. And here, Marco back on the front, trying to continue to set the agenda. What great work and great scenario for Isaac Del Toro. No sign of Jan Christen today to assist. Nonetheless, he'll be thrilled to have two teammates here with 22.5 kilometres to go.
Well, when I've been looking at the two, and you just said it also, Declan, Valgren looking possibly too. He certainly looks a lot smoother, but again, it's Julian Alaphilippe we're talking about, so it's hard to get a read on how bad or good he's going according to his style on the bike. But if you look back to Bianchi last week, that Michael Valgren finished 7 places higher than Julian Alaphilippe, who was 13th. And on top of that, he did a lot of work for Ben Healy. He was sort of riding on the front of a group, trying to tow Ben Healy along, who then was sort of dropped off the group, and Valgren waited for him again, and Healy ended up top 10, but Valgren did a monstrous ride, and he was riding more like a super domestique rather than for himself, and still finished 13th. So he'll give Julian Alaphilippe a lot to deal with, and if it came to a 2-up sprint, Valgren is certainly not slow either, and he's won his share of races, including the Amstel Gold Race in the past. So Alaphilippe, he will have his hands full.
It's a super match race between these two breakaway riders. Whether they hang on or not, going to get the bell. That's the first sight we've had of that climb, followed by the descent and across the finish line. The second time across the finish line, and they've got one full tour of 21.6 kilometres remaining. As the three chasers, lest we forget, are still in hot pursuit, not giving up too much. Showing at 13 seconds, are they managing to maintain that? It's Haig that seems to be the strongest of the three. Again, starting to pull all sorts of faces. It's a painful day for all the riders today. And for the UAE Team Emirates XOG squad, Frost still available. Grossschartner's at the back of the lead group at the moment. He's still hanging in there. No doubt he'll try and save a little bit of energy, move back up. Distribution of points, Valgren scoring again. In King of the Mountains competition, he wants a bigger prize today.
I was just looking back a moment ago at the chase of UAE. I thought maybe Kevin Vermarker's work was done and possibly that it was Felix Grossgartner who'd taken over. Here's the corner that we saw the crash on earlier. Everybody looks to get through there safely. Some gap opening at the front.
Ready to go for the leaders up front as the chase group on the road, the big chase group, with a group of favourites at any rate. Main peloton on what's left of it. Now within 2 minutes, continuing to close down the advantage of our remaining leaders up front. We've got from that group of 8, 2 riders leading the field, and now Michael Valgan and Julian Alaphilippe. 3 other erstwhile breakaway chases led by Jack Haig. And then this group, wow, let's make a further adjustment. It's down to 1 3/4 minutes. Under the relentless pressure set by the UAE Team Emirates XRG squad. Still a decent-sized peloton involved here. The riders feeling the pinch and wondering where they're going to find the strength to get themselves up the climbs remaining, including the final ramp up, the Santuario Beato Sante, which begins with around about 4.8 to go. Short ramp of about 1 kilometre and level for about a kilometre and a half or more, and then another 1.1 kilometres up to the top of the Santuario Beato Sante, where I think we're going to see quite the bun fight. Will it be amongst those breakaway riders? But there's a few in here that are saving some energy. Ben Healy, crouched low over the bars, has his teammate up front, and also has his eye potentially on a move on general classification, and maybe with it a bid for stage honours today.
Pellizzari and Roglic still looking comfortable. Matteo Jorgensen behind him. And Carapaz and Healy, the men from EF. They have a teammate in Valga up the road, striving for the stage victory. 2 minutes. The gap between Julian Alaphilippe, the Valga and the peloton, which keeps Julian Alaphilippe in the virtual lead of this race by around 40 seconds.
Yeah, I think his bid for the blue jersey today, which is probably not what he was thinking about at all day. At any rate, we've been keeping more of an eye on that than he likely has, but could be a little bit of a bridge too far for him. But nonetheless, still in the fight for stage honours today. Just how much have they retained for the final hills to come? We've got a couple of ramps before we come to that final hill. This is a cruel finishing circuit. I mean, cruel. But it's kind to us, isn't it? We're enjoying it, and I think a lot of the riders in there, particularly those near the front, are enjoying the scrap. The roads of the Marche region always provide great racing.
I think UAE would quite like to keep young Christian in the wheel and keep him fresh until they get and then use him to everybody in the red zone, almost a sprint lead out about it, and then wait for Del Toro to go as per
a little bit of breakup on the Robbie's line, but yeah, I mean, how exactly are the UAE's going to play this one over the remaining kilometres of the day as we pick up the great slow motion images from Julian Alaphilippe, former world champion, sneaks a little look across. Valgren similarly trying to accumulate as much data as they can, an eyeball understanding of the gap. Well, they don't want to see any riders or vehicles supporting those riders behind. Valgren to the right, Alaphilippe to the left, and onto the first part of this ramp, and Alaphilippe maybe not quite as strong as Michael Valgren, but managing to stay within a bike length off the front of the race over this first little challenging gripper. Well, not the first of the day, of course, just the first on this finishing circuit, on this second lap of the finishing circuit. Still, total control maintained. Vermark available. Benoit Cosnefroid next up. And Isaac Del Toro waiting for his moment to shine. He's flanked by, on the left-hand side, the white jersey, Magnus Sheffield. Isaac Del Toro's right, the overall race leader, Giulio Pellizzari. Vermark deep into the final here, still available for his teammates and still available for the UAE Team Emirates XRG squad as a whole. Marking and waiting to pounce. Other riders behind. EF Education Easy Post with multiple representation. We've got Ben Healy in there.
A little bit of ballast overboard for him. Just an extra squirt out of the water bottle, get rid of a few grams. Del Toro there, 2-1-1 of the Mexican champ jersey. Jorgensen behind him next to Pellizzari. And
Barry going backwards again. Yeah, we've seen he's kind of been flirting with the back door for way too much at this stage. I think it's a bit of a Joussin, whatever the Italian equivalent is for Antonio Tiberi as he finds himself going backwards. And
Giordano Senza, I guess.
yeah. Yes, it's not a day with, unfortunately. Yeah, well, slightly less might have been expected from Vendrame, especially after his exploits in the break yesterday.
He's been phenomenal in this race so far. The stages he's survived to fight for the victory already has been really impressive. This is a bit more like a pure climbers, at least a very good climbing puncher's stage, and Vendrame has acquitted himself well, so no shame in finding the going tough right at the moment. Jorgensen ridden himself right up next to him, just in front of Isaac Del Toro. Magnus Sheffield just behind Del Toro in the white jersey, best young rider. Tobias Halland Johansson with an acceleration.
It's time to start kicking things off amongst the group of favourites. This is going to be the first test and challenge for those GC favourites, as Tobias Halland has decided to launch third place yesterday. And the potential to move up from a pretty strong situation on the general classification with Tobias Halland sitting 12th overall at 51 seconds. And a little bit of leeway maybe to explore his own opportunities as Timon Aronsman has been asked to challenge here. Who's next up? Well, EF have Richard Carapaz. This looks like Healy, I think, is just going to try and try his Carapaz. His Carapaz actually has now being latched onto by Isaac Del Toro.
Yeah, there's a good move by Johannesson. There was an interview with him before the start today, and even on the gravel stage, he was asked, well, you must be happy with how you rode that. You're really coming at that front group. And he just said, well, I was sort of out of position, and I felt great, and I was a bit dirty on myself that I didn't position better to really be able to give myself the best shot. So maybe from there, the anticipation today, trying to get on the front foot and not be left chasing. Good job.
Inside 15 to go, and Emil Verstringer joins up with the chase Georg Zimmerman, but they're still finding the fighting rear guard action, dropping further away. Meanwhile, up front, they're still hanging on to 1 3/4 minutes, and maybe a little bit more than that. Michael Valgren and Julian Alaphilippe have combined wonderfully to really ask a huge question of the peloton, who are starting to get a little bit racy. Tobias Halland is our attacker out of the group of favourites, pursuing a stage honours today. A year on from victory for Frederick de Vesnes' teammate and fellow countryman with the NOX squads. Took great victory from the breakaway. Slightly different approach today from the man who was third across the line in yesterday's stage. He's going to be dragged back in by the relentless pursuit of the UAE Team Emirates XRG squad. rest of the favourites gather around and trying to make plans with what resources they have left. Only they will know what sort of legs they have available for the fight.
Well, it's about to get tough again. They've had this little descent and now they start to climb again. So from around 14.5 kilometres to go, it was just starting to drag up again. And we'll bring them through, steep pinch up until around just 13.5 kilometres to go. So there's a little kick up at the top of this rise. It's more of a false flat that they're on this little section. Get over the top of the rise, a plateau.
difficult one to pick out. Johnny Zagari, of course, he's riding quite well in this sort of terrain, but again, he's in the general classification in 7th, and there's always, riders that are just in front of him and want to chase him. Look at the actually time difference, but again, it's a one where it's going to be difficult for him to try and ride away in the end against some of the guys in the peloton who will be thinking of, the stage win. And if Binigo and those guys start thinking about the stage win, well then it is going to be very difficult to see a confidence rider getting the stage win.
Johnny Zagari sits at 9 minutes 2 seconds from Jonas Vingegaard. But as you say, Sean, just above him, less than a minute, he's got his compatriot Marc Soler. Then at a minute and a half, he's got Lenny Martinez, who isn't one to go down without a fight. And then at just 2 minutes or 3 minutes, you got to Kevin Vauquelin. So, yes, there are riders who will not want to let him go.
No, and Vauquelin and Martinez, a lot of those riders will be trying to, get away in the final as well.
Because they want to try and get a stage win. I know they have a nice place in the general classification, but yeah, a stage win is very important, and so there'll be a lot of people, thinking I can win this if it comes down to a battle between the men out of the peloton, which it looks like very possible. 1:37 at the moment, over 50 to go.
On Paris, it's Louis Rouland who's on bottle duty. He's got a couple in the frame, 3 in the back pockets. And it's thirsty work at the front for Cofidis. Benjamin Thomas, Frenchman, Giro d'Italia stage winner, former national champion of the time trial, and now Olympic champion on the track. He's been doing the chasing today. Cofidis are working. For those of you who've just been away at commercial break, Sean's been speculating as to why. We tried to land on maybe Johnny Zagari as a reason, but although he's going well, you never know. And you can certainly rule out Roulon if he's doing the bottle running, not riding for him.
No, and I don't think I'd be picking out him if I was pushed to pick a name out of the Cofidis list of riders here. And when you look at John Izagari, of course, he's won a lot of very good races, but most of them out of breakaways, and that is the way he's able to win. But to win out of a bunch, as I mentioned, it's hard to see where they can do it. But is it...
Vingegaard has 3 minutes and 22 on Danny Martinez, 5 minutes and 50 on Georg Steinhauser. You would suggest that the GC action is below Jonas Vingegaard, barring any disaster.
Yes, it looks like that is, pretty much for Jonas Vingegaard. He's in the position to win this Paris-Nice. But, you have to get through the days to come. But I think on a battle straight out, doesn't seem to be anybody there who can challenge, because they're way too far off. And unfortunately, we lost some of the big favourites for the general classification in this race. And, that is a disappointing one, because I think... we had a few guys there who, would have been maybe closer at this time and really pushing, but Jonas is going to, I think, all going right, and it's just concentration and keep your focus with the team. He should win this Paris-Nice.
weather, then suddenly you get just one bad, horrible day.
The following day you're out of it, and yeah, you'd wonder where it came out of, but it can do so much damage. And of course this year was I think probably the year where it did most damage because of the way it started out right in the beginning and went on all day, and then we had the crashes which took out some of the big names as well. So it was a disaster day for some, but a good day for others, because we see on the we got away from
the toll from the Red Bull Bowl, and they just tolled it along, and in the end they were the ones who didn't allow the chasers to get back in, and then of course Ringo was the best on that opening finish. So thanks to that team, he's in that very, very big lead at the moment at the top of the German classification. It's just Charlie. English Grenadiers used to have a great record in this race, didn't they? For a decade they really on and off. They haven't won that innings though before we even knew what COVID-19 was. Remember now, 2019, the last time that the English Grenadiers won this. Although it was innocent days for us all, right? Oscar having to leave the race this morning will be disappointing for them, but sickness can't be helped. And they've had a good week though with winning the team time trial. And Kevin Vogler is looking brilliant, isn't he? He is looking brilliant, but I think he's disappointed the way the race have been going for him, because he's found himself in really difficult situations on that really difficult day where there was extra right from the start. We did hear from that he got pushed by a rider and had to walk the road a bit. And if you walk the road at all for a couple of metres on the grass verge, well then you lose 50 places just the click of your fingers, and you're in the wrong position then, and of course when the splits are there it's just impossible to make it across. And he's shown excellent shape. We did see yesterday again that final. He's been marked now by other riders, and stage win, that's what he's hoping to get out of this one. And in the German classification he's getting a nice position, but I think on the very difficult day that with conditions and stage win, I think will be coming for him. 19 seconds on the podium as well, and the white jersey Joe Steinhausen sits just ahead of him. 5 minutes 15 first to third. The gaps are huge, as Sean's just been talking about, and reason why with that very nasty day. Steinhauser excelled in that poor weather. We're hearing right at the top of the broadcast from his teammate Alex Buda from EF Education Easy Post, and how the German excels in those conditions. Playing to his strengths. Still plenty to be decided, but again, we'll see what happens here today, given the fact tomorrow has so many doubts swirling about it. It's not too much opportunity to make the difference in the mountains. Now, what's happening here? Are we getting another mountain ride? I think we are. So that's that. A new rider at the front for Cofidis. That's John, well done for Ishmael Thomas. You could just see him grimacing the last few kilometres. He will be dropped, it will be done. And let's see what effect a brand new rider has at the front for Cofidis. Because over the last 15 kilometres or so, the gap has grown from 120 to 140. Earlier today we saw NSN doing quite a bit of work. Let's hear from ቢንያም ግርማይ.
It's going to be a pretty tough day because we already see yesterday we expect to have an easy start, but yeah, if we keep going with, I would say today. So I think today is also not going to be easy to control because if we need to control, I need to keep my guys, everyone just before the bottom of the climb, unless if we can find someone who is interested on the sprint, but I don't think a lot of teams is interested on the sprint. The more big chance to have the victory is to have someone in the breakaway. So we have the numbers. We try to do our best to have the stage victory. Doesn't matter if it's me or the other teammates. So we just want to win as a team here, and we'll do our best.
Thank you, Bilian. Thank you very much.
Talk about the difficult start there. Bilian Girmay would be on top form if he could get over everything today and get to the finish. certainly with the way they're riding. That final climb coming inside the final few kilometres, 4 kilometres long, 5% is a second category climb. Hence the reason perhaps he was talking about other riders as well. And the team, despite riding earlier on, decided to stop riding, and Company seemed the most committed. They've already used up their Schwantoma. Just see here, they're coming up to some sort of point, because there's a lot of fighting at the front now for position. Here come Red Bull. EF Education Easy Post started to move up. Everybody seems to have got the call here that there's an important part, whether it be safety here in the town or something else, just to keep an eye on. This one is about trying to react. We are coming into a much more built-up area here. That was quite visible from the air. Red Bull or Heimsgard EF at the same time, suddenly darting from the front. EF couldn't get there and found their path blocked. Red Bull are there with Lawrence Fiffy. Fedorov, the Asian champion there for XDS Astana. Kwiatkowski's on bodyguard duty for Ineos. And there is Benjamin Thomas, who after all of his hard work is now struggling to stay in the bunch. All of that for a left turn. Not yet coming to any particular important climb. That comes in about 5k's time, the entrance to the second category climb. You can tell and see from the where the breakaway are here, the road leading up to it is much more narrow. It's clear that sports directors want their teams to be at the front before they get the start on this climb. This is the lead into it. Just under 45 kilometres to go off the main road onto a narrower road. It twists and turns into the climb, and you can see behind the nerves of sports directors.
Yes, well, we see that so much now at the races that, the more is turning left or right, or there's a train coming up and they're going through the town or village where it gets a little bit technique. You know, the director sport is pushing, okay, guys, we have to keep our lead, or we have to keep our split, whatever the case may be, in front end of the peloton, which means that top 20, 30 riders. And for that, it's just racing now. There's a sprint to every corner. Even if there's 100 kilometres to go, they seem to be sprinting, and then just around the corner they knock it off. But here we're getting into the more, I think, interesting part for a lot of the riders here, because there's a lot of riders here who are thinking on the stage, and the GC men like Jonas being go as well, who are up there. Now is the time to start really focusing on this final and be in the position all the time to the very finish line here, and that's the reason we can see that fight, and we can see the way the road is totally packed with riders now, all wanting to be in that perfect position. Alex Kirsch, the former national champion of Luxembourg, is the rider from Cofidis who's taken back over at the front. All of that pushing and shoving towards the front took out 15 seconds from the gap, and we're now 3 kilometres from the Condorcet des Mascots. It's a second category climb. It's the longest of the day, 7 kilometres long. Average is just at 4.3%. But it's been a long week, and there are tired legs. A little chat with them. BT here. Yes, well, there's some tired legs. I think some of them really quite good, and that's always the case at the beginning of the season, especially a week-long race. Those riders who are in really good condition, and they're coming into this stage with good feeling, and that's very important. And then there's other riders who are struggling because maybe they had an injury or been sick beforehand.
كم يعلو كوليكشن يا حوت سمع لنا سيكون حد ولا نتعرف سمعت لي حد نتعرف
fight. But yeah, at the moment they're the ones being left doing it, and this Melissa White, they're going to sit back and say, okay, a team doing it here, that takes the pressure off us, and it also simplifies it because if they ride at a really fast rate and they start pulling back the brake, with other teams that are going to say, they're actually again, they want to take another stage win, and that's what teams do not want. They don't want to be seen to be greedy, so it suits this position, and if Vigo is interested at this stage, well then it looks like that it's going to come down to a stage battle between the men out of the peloton.
Just watch this go absolutely crazy, guys. We get up to that section, we just saw the breakaway. It narrowed, there were speed bumps, and already you can see Total Energy moving their riders up on the right side with the white jerseys on. Confidence managed to get a couple of riders up there, including Yolis Aguirre. 4 different teams battling to keep their leaders at the front here. Eduardo Affini's doing the work in the yellow jersey for Visma Lisa Bike. Still Kirsch on the right as we look at it for Kufis. And we're through Peatbound Dake. Straight after that, there's another change to the shape and pattern. People start to become able to get into the wheels again further on, and another 10 seconds has gone out the gap with all of that fighting. Bahrain make their way through now the right hand side as we look at it. They're looking after Lenny Martinez. Sits fifth, 7:37 down. He's got Phil Barhaus in front of him. Martinez looking up at Kevin Vogler, his compatriot. Take quite the leap to get to 4th place, however. Vogler at 6:09. It's a minute and a half. And here we are. 7.1 k's to the top. It's the opening of the grand finale of today's stage. It's the second category climb. Longish descent after this. Then another climb that isn't categorised, but it's where we'll get bonus seconds, 6, 4 and 2. Down in Saint-Martin-de-Castillon. Another descent. And today's final climb up the Côte de Seigneur. That follows a very short flat section. And after that, a descent into Ant, where Tischbenut was the winner the last time we visited 6 seasons ago. There's Bruno Armihai at the back. A lot of work yesterday. But now he's leaving it all to Eduardo Affini. Imagine that he might have been active earlier on as well, once the breakaway flight was going and things like that. This is the peloton making its way into the start of this climb. On Total Energy, they're ready to go. Martinez as well for Bahrain. Kirsch still there. And he's got Aguirre on his wheel. So 119, a little bit more space here. Available left hand side, bit of the cam before the star. Feels like it, doesn't it? Yes. And sometimes the cam can last quite a long time. Everybody, just wanted to be in position, a lot of pushing and pushing up on the pace, and then you get into the climb, and it all settles down, and nobody wants, to make the attack. But you can see here Bahrain are starting, to push on. Lenny Martinez. This time, it's a one. It's not really for the real sprinters, because you have that steam gradient which they would like, but if you can put on the real
fast pace. You can. This is not too difficult at the moment. Maybe we can get over this one, because if it really went up this one, full on some of the riders, the stronger teams pushing on big time.
Thanks يا هوات سبسكرايب ميز جبركم أنا اللي
If you go for that a little bit easier,
بحجب زحاشة فيديوتات إذا ما تكون دحرين إن شاء الله زحاشة زبالكو فيديو إذا كنتم كلهم سبسكرايب قولوا تبقى بتبتخ شير لايك وبركات.
It's a situation at the front that calm before the relative calm before the storm.
كم يلا connection
Yeah, just managing to find a place up there. Just 4 wheels back in the white jersey is Williams Montiel Steinhausen. Currently on the podium of Bafinis. Well, in just a moment's time, hearing that the hunting was finished once again, it sounds like it was a barnstorming stage. So if you've been with us since the start, or understandably living real life at work, make sure you check out the highlights later on the TNT Sports and Discovery Plus, and a reminder on the TNT Sports Cycling YouTube channel. If you're pressed for time, you can watch short highlights, but I suggest, from what I'm hearing, that the proper highlight show or complete rerun on demand on Discovery Plus is where to go. I want our viewers join us from Tina and Adriatic. We'll give them a very quick update to see where we've been and get them all up to date with you. We'll continue to the finish as the fans from Kazakhstan are on the side of the road. It's Phil Bauhaus who's trying to put on his best climbing legs on the left-hand side. Navy jersey, turquoise sleeves, looking at the numbers. He's attempting to keep Lenny Martinez up there as much as possible. Here comes his Aguirre at the front. Moving up with Brian Cookar. It's Kisper Askren who's the rider from EF that I mentioned. And welcome Kelderman, who's up there now in a yellow jersey. Minute 23. Welcome to those of you just joining us. It's the curious case of Friday the 13th impact. The last time Bafinis visited today's Finnish town was the last time we had a Friday the 13th in March. The year was 2020. Jesper Nutt won the stage. We all know what happened a few days later. Let's hope that the parallels and similarities with the world are a worrying place at the moment. All end there. I can tell you there's no worries for Jonas Vingegaard on the general classification today at Bafinis. It's stage 6, 179 kilometres, 2,000 metres of climbing, 4 King of the Mountains points to get through. Once again, before we get to this leg-breaking finale in Provence, as we get our first attack from Søren Kragh, we had a very fast start today. For the first 2 hours, it was ridden at 49 kilometres per hour. A group of 4 away, well after 75 k's. They were Tarlin, Arrieta, Krug, and Lucas. They had a maximum gap of 2 minutes. It's made me a bit confident doing the work. But here our little trek, free now of any obligation to protect Juan Ayuso, who annoyingly for them crashed out the other day while in the yellow jersey. They have an opportunity to attack. That opportunity is being taken right now by the Danish national champion, Søren Kragh. 36 kilometres remain. This is the third to last climb, again for the benefit of those of you just joining us. Halfway up the 7-kilometre ascent to Condonao de Masco. It's a second category climb. Average gradient 4.5%. And I guess this is practice for Chipes and Podge for Mr. Kragh.
Well, he's had a lot of practice out in front and, just riding the brake bin the other part of the race. And, he's a rider who's going to be classics, semi-classics, and this is the perfect preparation for that we've been riding this race. And, it's an interesting one here that he rides away, 3.2 to go. It must be back in the peloton that the pace is not rapidly high for the moment. And as we talked about it just some time back, that the sprinter teams will be thinking, if we can cling on in here, get over this long one, maybe we can make it to the end of it again. There's other climbs. The next one is also pretty difficult climb. It's a 4-kilometre one. That is enough if it really just glass up that one, then they could put the capacity in difficulty.
It's a wildly open stage today. This can be won by sprinters who can survive, breakaway artists and attack-minded riders, or even those in the general classification. Still 3Ks to go to the top of this climb. Ryan Cook out, sitting close to the front, as is Johnny Santiago. Confidence are interested today. To do something. Man doing everything the last couple of days, and the yellow jersey on your screen there, for the benefit of those who are away watching TV and all. We were telling viewers earlier on that it was another demonstration for Vigneault. The longest, largest, I should say, winning margin of any stage in Paris since 2012 yesterday. 2 minutes, 2 seconds. Not quite as big as the 6 minutes plus for Thomas de Gent back then. But a brilliant victory by the Dane, 2-time winner of the Tour de France. Another Dane here, the national champion. He's taken 20 seconds on that peloton right now. Just a minute behind the 4 riders up the road. Arrieta, Tarling, Kras and Kluckers. None of them dangerous in the general classification, by the way. But we were just talking about Jonas Vingegaard. Nobody really is dangerous in the GC. It's an incredible gap. First to third on the podium, 5 minutes 50. First to second, 3 minutes 22. Danny Martinez, the Colombian rider from Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe, remains that rider in second place. Things would have really hot up on the final climb. Could it be 3 in a row from Jonas Vingegaard? That hasn't been done at Paris since 1977. 49 years since Freddie Martins was doing it. On the opening 4 stages then, as we were hearing earlier on, Sean Kelly's debut in this race that he went on to own, 7 times winner, record holder, leading out Freddie Martins. What an apprenticeship that would have been.
Well, let's call it trying to lead him out, because when I remember back in that my first Paris-Nice with Freddie Martins, I did not know a lot about lead-outs. I was a new professional, and I got a lot of advice from the guys in that team who were looking after Freddie Martins how to do it, but I made quite a few mistakes as well, and I got awarded out in the even time. But that was a great experience, and I remember that Paris-Nice very well, considering like there's so many in my own I don't remember the days as well as I do with that first one with Martins, and looking after him some great times, and great memories.
I'm going to confirm that you don't remember them all, because you and I were chatting earlier on. We were given a lovely list by our good mate and colleague Killian Kelly of statistics earlier on. And there's a particular statistic that Sean noticed, and it involves him. And he said, I don't know that. I had no idea I'd done that. Basically, Jonas Vingegaard could win all 3 main jerseys here if he takes enough points to get into the green jersey competition. Only 2 riders have ever done that at Paris. One was the great Eddie Merckx, and the other on 3 occasions was Sean Kelly, and you can't even remember doing it.
No, I didn't remember I won it 3 times. I knew I did win all jerseys on a time, but of course when you win the race overall you forget about the other ones a little bit. But Killian's stats there, that brought it back to me that there was 3 on 3 years I did it, winning all 3 jerseys.
Just to refresh Sean's memory, those years were 83, 84 and 86. This is the moment, by the way, that here in 26, Kral left the peloton, and he's advancing at quite a rate of knots. He's got 30 seconds on those chasing him behind now. They do it in around 50 of the leading 4. Okay, that 47 now. The kilometres at the top. And as you were saying, you wondered how this was going to be ridden. As of yet, we haven't, apart from this move, we haven't really seen anything in the peloton, have we?
No, it's the same situation. I think everybody is just keeping position there and keeping their leaders in the position they want to be, and other teams want to, be in the position there to have a go for the stage win. But for the moment, the gap is coming down slowly, but still, if this had really exploded and started going full on up this climb, this gap would be down quite a lot more. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one now after this climb, with still 34 kilometres to go. There's quite a bit of road to be done yet, so I think I'm confident that this gap can be closed down later, and that's the reason the teams that are really interested in getting the stage win are not panicking for the moment.
500 metres to the top. One national champion here being chased by another. Talking about Killy's stats, he told us that it's the biggest number of national champions ever in a Baffin East earlier this week. 11 of them here. Klukers has won, Krau another. Krau's victory in the Danish Nationals was the 10th of his career. Hasn't raised his arms again since then. I remind you though, he's a two-time Tour de France stage winner. When he was back in his, what was then Sunweb days, now picnic poster now. How they could do with a William. No victory since last June for the Dutch squad. Heck, serving 25-30 seconds over the chasing peloton, the yellow jersey group. So within 35 seconds of the leaders. You feel that this move and these gaps coming like this are spelling the end for this group.
Yes, unfortunately, we could see the advantage they had coming into this final and coming onto this climb. It was just that little bit too slim advantage, and even if it didn't really kick off, it was still going to be a difficult one, and that is the case. It hasn't really kicked off the peloton big time at all, and they're losing the time here, and with 33 kilometres to go, unfortunately again it's not going to be where we're going to see the winner coming out of the breakaway. And it's the case of teams wanting to chase, and you have the team of the race leader Jonas Vingegaard, Visma Lisa, but they're going to control, and if they're allowed to do that, well then they would maybe have the disadvantage doing quite a bit more. But there's always teams coming to the front and just pushing on the pace, and for that reason the breakaway again. And it's so familiar, this one, because we've seen it in all the races pretty much, that the breakaway, there's always a team that miss it and they want to chase and they feel they have a card to play, and for that reason it just kills off the breakaway.
You rugby fans, Sean's among them by the way. Sunday you can see Prem Cup action coming up at 2:45 on TNT Sports. Here's that feed. Big work done by him again. Now crash just off the back here. First little sections of a descent that sees a narrow road, and I think that's probably why we're seeing this gap to the yellow jersey group come down quite significantly. You would imagine, we haven't seen the front of that bunch for a while, you would imagine, given what we're looking at here, that a lot of the GC teams have been fighting for position at the front.
Yes, well, there will be, a climb like this distance, there's going to be quite a long descent as well. They know that we can see it's, technically enough, but not major. But again, the teams, they always want to, be in a good position, and for that reason, they do push on. In the final kilometre, for the final, 2 kilometres of the climb, they push on a bit more and to get into position for descent.
Team cars have been pulled out from the break, as we could just see there. Still Kofilis. And 31 kilometres remain. It's day 6 of Baffin-Nice, with a bit of doubt about tomorrow's finish as well. Every stage counts here. Seconds. It's 56 to this yellow jersey group. Descending now seriously for the next 5Ks. But then it's falls flat downhill for the best part of 10 kilometres after that. Unclassified climb to Saint-Martin de Castillon. And that's where we'll have today's intermediate sprint. Cruelly placed at the top of the hill. 6.4 and 2 bonus seconds will be available as well, too. Just looking at the gap to Søren Kragh, it doesn't look like he is venturing too far forward. Stuck in the middle now.
Well, it's understandable, as you can see, the way the peloton has been pulled along by Cofres, and it's always difficult to make the difference, unless it's really steep climb and somebody who's a really good climber and they go on the attack. That's where they can really pull the advantage away from the peloton or pull the riders out in front back, and that's what we're seeing here, because the teams are just keeping that position, and when you look at the peloton, it doesn't look like it's going very, very fast out. It wasn't going anywhere near. They could be going full on